The epic begins with the one who has seen everything. Although it consists of 12 chapters, there are evaluations that the last chapter does not fit the rhythm of the epic and was added later. But the common interpretation is that it took place in the same period. Because of this feature, researchers did not publish this chapter in the first inscriptions, but included it in recent books because it added integrity to the epic. The soul, resurrection after death, and punishments are discussed here. Gilgamesh talks about these with the god of the underworld, and Enkidu is resurrected. When Western researchers first deciphered the epic, they were shocked. Because the flood story told in the Bible, Noah's Ark, and the chosen creatures were almost identical. Their belief was that there was no previous story.
Our ship was quickly stuck next to Mount Nimrod. I released the next birds to the four corners of the world.
The Epic of Gilgamesh 1250 BC was written by the Kurdish poet Sinli Kunini in the Kassite language, one of the first ancestors of the Kurds. The vast cedar forests mentioned in the epic correspond to the Zagros Mountains. Enkidu, on whom the epic is based, is brought down to the city by Gilgamesh while living in the forest. This forest is in the Zagros Mountains. We can see from here that both Enkidu and the epic are Kurdish. As is known, the characters fought in the epic also live in dense forests. At that time, the only forested region was the Zagros Mountains. Close to Uruk, the Zagros Mountains have been the homeland of the Kurds from history to the present. Some sources write that this was around 2000 BC. Apart from the fact that the ancestors of the Kurds were the first to use it. The cuneiform used by the Assyrians, Babylonians, Sumerians, and Akkadians, unlike Hebrew and Arabic, is read from left to right, like the Latin alphabet. The Gutians, the mythological ancestors of the Kurds, existed in history before the Kassites. The Gutians used cuneiform before the Sumerians. This date corresponds to 3000 BC. From the Gutians to the Kassites, and from them to the Mitanni, Hurrians, and Medes. There was no interruption in Kurdish society, only the administrations and, hence, the names changed. Ali Shariati says, the foundations of Middle Eastern culture are Persian culture, and the foundations of Persian culture are Kurdish culture. The text is told in third person. Although in these years the writing of historical and legendary characters was replaced by imaginary autobiographers, there is little doubt about the author and compiler of the epic. The epic tells the story of the city of Uruk in southern Mesopotamia and its ruler Gilgamesh, his friendship with Enkidu and Gilgamesh's search for the plant of immortality. The similarities of creation, original sin, and expulsion from heaven have caused much debate and suspicion in new religions. Thus, it is seen that the sources, stories, and references of these divine religions, almost except for the details, are taken from Zoroastrianism, the Avesta, and the Gilgamesh epic. Apart from this, in terms of mythological heroes and supernatural powers and their definitions, it is generally accepted that they are the source of the Iliad. The gods, goddesses, and their duties are defined separately. Ninsun is the mother goddess, Gilgamesh's mother, and Lugabonda is his father. Shambat is a rather controversial character. She takes Enkidu from the wild with education and charm and allows him to join the settled city life. Their battles with Shamash, the sun god, Sin, the moon god, and Humbaba, the evil protector of the forest, are important. There is also a poetic side to it. When the gods created man, they gave him death. they reserved eternal life for themselves. With his advice, Siduri teaches Gilgamesh to give up his hopes for divinity and immortality and to accept human existence. Gilgamesh does not accept immortality and goes in search of the plant of immortality, but loses it to a snake when he finds it. Ultimately, he finds happiness not in the gods, but in living with the people. This coincides with the last moment of his journey of discovery. The epic's component is shaped around his mother, Gilgamesh's interpretation of his dream, and ultimately finding Enkidu in a conflicted manner, becoming friends and brothers, and Enkidu's death. Enkidu and he defeats Humbaba, the guardian of the sacred cedar forest, and then the bull of heaven. All these troubles occur when Gilgamesh rejects the pleasure-loving Ishtar, who rejects him, and when Ishtar sends the sky god and her father, Anu, against them. "Let the bull of heaven trample them," she says. But Enkidu and Gilgamesh defeat the bull. They went and washed their bloody hands in a forgiving river. In its depths stood the eternal Euphrates, never changing. At the end of these battles, the enemies are punished, but Enkidu dies as a result of his wounds. This death saddens Gilgamesh indescribably, and from there develops the idea of seeking immortality. For this, he searches for Utnapishtimi, the only person who survived the Great Flood with his wife. He asks for help from Utnapishtimi's ferryman, Authorship, who knows the way to heaven. The ferryman takes Gilgamesh to Utnapishtim. God tells him about the flood. He tells him where the grass of immortality is. He knows the secret of eternal life because he is the only one left from the great flood. This journey and the descriptions are an epic in themselves. The description of heaven and the description of souls are like in the new religious books. When he falls asleep on the way back, the snake steals the grass of immortality and the snake becomes immortal. The snake also deceives Adam and Eve. He loses his immortality. But Gilgamesh returns with a new, public-friendly personality. Throughout history, the relationship between Shambat, who attracted Enkidu to the city, and Gilgamesh has been discussed in various dimensions, and similarities have been tried to be established. Shambat has been compared to a sacred temple, a ziggurat priestess or Eros, the goddess of love. The flood narrative, the name and details of the god Enlil, the creator of this flood, are described in the 11th tablet. Did this transformation create the 11th thesis idea? There is no reason why this epic, which has influenced all religions and cultures, should not have influenced the author of the 11th thesis idea. Siduri, the counselor, narrates as a Dengbe. Aruru is the great goddess of creation. The creation of Enkidu also evokes a similarity. At the request of Unu, the father of the gods, the protector of Uruk, Aruru shapes Enkidu from rock to be a friend to Gilgamesh and makes him the guardian of the forest. Ninurta, the god of war. Enlil, the god who created the great flood. Where do the Greek gods, the Iliad and the Odyssey come from? Gilgamesh sends Shambat to the forest to convince Enkidu and draw him from the wild to the city life. And so it happens. In an epic narrative, Shambat convinces Enkidu and brings him to Uruk. When he arrives, he and Gilgamesh engage in a long fight. No one wins, and they become friends and brothers. Enkidu, in his dream, Anu says to Enlil, Enkidu must die. Gilgamesh also saw friendship with Enkidu in his dream. Enkidu falls ill and dies. Gilgamesh is indescribably sad. Gilgamesh said with his words in bird tongue, I will honor your dead body with a monument. 35 gods and their functions are described. There are almost as many names in the Iliad. Ea, god of water and wisdom, protector of people. Inugi is the most interesting. Secondary gods, demons. Iblis is the second god, the controller. Ishtar, goddess of love. Shamash, god of the sun and justice. It is said in the new legend that Solomon knew bird language. I wonder what its source is. Anunnaki, the god of those who go to the underworld, that is, the dead, judges the dead and determines their fate. Shamash is the great god. He calls the chief executioner, that is, the god of the underworld, Nergal. These are discussed in the 12th chapter. Gilgamesh questions Nergal, the dead, the soul, and resurrection. Isn't this the philosophy that new religions are founded on? Nergal and Gilgamesh discuss life after death. There is Enkidu's resurrection and his inclusion in the epic at the end. Resurrection after death is mentioned. We are talking about religions almost 3,000 years ago. Although its general acceptance seems controversial when we look at the region where the epic takes place, its compiler or author, names and place names mentioned in the epic, it can be said that it is a mythological Kurdish epic. This discussion is more prevalent in the prefaces of new editions. The general opinion is concentrated in this direction.
This was a short summary Epic of Gilgamesh. I hope you have gained new information. Now come together. I think most of you do not know the meaning of Gilgamesh in this epic that you have read. Let's solve it together. What does it mean? And let's give logical explanations. When we search for the Gilgamesh epic on the internet, we come across these photographs. We see a character that is half human and half bull or buffalo fighting with someone who is strong and big. When you do a Google translation, you'll see that the closest meaning of Gilgamesh is for Kurds, the Iranian family, and those who speak Indo-European languages. Let's do some research. Persians call buffalo, and similar things gomis when we look here. What are similar animals like bulls and buffaloes called in different languages? Arabic, Jemus, Maltese, Jemus, Azerbaijani, Jamies, Italian, Jamuso-Turkish, Jamies, Chechen Gomas, Gujarati, Gubmes, Old Georgian Gemizi. When we look at the Kurdish language, we see
bull, gar,
buffalo, gamesh.
The similarities are very close and mean the same thing, but lose their meaning. As we move away from the Indo-European languages, let's not forget this important note that Gamesh and similar words are borrowed from Middle Iranian. The word of Gilgamesh is Kurdish. The word of Gilgamesh consists of two words, Gil plus Gamesh. Kil, Zil. Zil means strong in Kurdish, and Gamesh means ox or water buffalo. These words are still used in Kurdish language. It is strange that nobody looks for the meaning of it elsewhere. Guys in Swedish ko, in English cow. Gil in Kurdish is gur, which means like in German, gross, or English great. A man who is extra strong is called in Kurdish the man who has the big oxen power. Then why is this Gilgamesh a Kurdish, and why shouldn't the legend and epic of Gilgamesh be a Kurdish legend and epic? As follows. The word Gil in the name Gilgamesh means both kill, which means strong, and Zil, which means Zal, big, big. Just like the name of the legendary figure, Rustam Zil, in recent Kurdish history. Zel means giant, giant, mighty, powerful in Kurdish. At that time, the legendary Gilgamesh, who was a semigod, was called Zilgil-Gomp, which means powerful. In fact, this name consists of two names, but according to today's grammar rules, it is pronounced wrongly as a single, compound name. In other words, the correct one is Zilgomps. Gilgamesh means Gabul in Kurdish. Kemu, which is similar to the bull, is still called Gomps in Kurdish. Well then, why and how could Gilgamp's name not be a Kurdish name? Summary. In this study, the socio-linguistic relation between Sumerian and Kurdish has been searched in the context of Gilgamesh word. For this purpose, the history of Sumerian Kurdish, the analysis of epic, and the etymological analysis of the main character, Gilgamesh, have been studied. As a result, the motif of bull ox, cow, gu/ga, in the complex word Gil, Ga, Mesh, has been illustrated, and it is thought that there might be common historical, cultural, and linguistic relation between two nations.